In this next video, part 2 in a multi-part series on things to do in and around Battambang, Cambodia, I'm focusing mostly on riding the infamous bamboo train. But do stick around to the end for a bonus site to see near Battambang that you won't want to miss. Hey there, Ralph Velasco of the Continental Drifter, where I share simple but powerful tips designed to make your travels easier and more interesting, and your photography even better. Do us all a favor and hit that like button right now while you're thinking about it. That really helps the channel a lot, so thanks for that. All right, let's do this. Remember, drifters, life's too short not to travel. This is part 2 in a series of things to see and do in and around Battambang, Cambodia. Hopefully you've already had a chance to check out part 1, where I talked about the really fun tuk-tuk adventures I set up for my groups. But if you haven't, there's a link conveniently located in the description box below. Something I've done on my own and with my groups just outside of Battambang is to ride the infamous bamboo train. Are you familiar with it? Let me know in the comments below if you've heard of the bamboo train, or even better, if you've ridden it before. Over the years, there have been rumors of it shutting down, being refurbished, getting moved or rerouted, and more. But from what I could tell, that's all a thing of the past, and it's back up and running and in better shape than ever. This is one of those adventures you won't find anywhere else, and it should definitely be on everyone's list of truly unique experiences to seek out and do. From what I could gather during my research, this network of rail riding flatbed carts was started by the French back in colonial times, but was mostly abandoned after the brutal Khmer Rouge effectively shut it down. According to Wikipedia, Nori construction is a cottage industry conducted in trackside villages. It takes around 4 days to construct one of these vehicles, which have a steel frame overlaid with bamboo slats resting on wheels taken from abandoned tanks. Nori is another name for these flatbed carts and is synonymous with the bamboo train. Operated by both men and women drivers, and at times with the help of their children, the platforms are powered by what look to be nothing more than the equivalent of simple gas-powered lawnmower engines, and to tell you the truth, I'm not sure there are even brakes on these vehicles. I know I probably sound like a broken record, but get there early. Although at last check it currently operates all day long from about 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. when I bring my people to experience the bamboo train on our Cambodia Kingdom of Wonder tour. I try for us to be the first group there, and not just because of the great light and cooler mornings. I'll explain more in a bit. To maximize the ratio of riders to drivers, they'll usually put 4 people per Nori, plus the driver. It's definitely not the most comfortable ride, especially if you have trouble sitting cross-legged like me, but thin mats and sometimes even pillows are provided. So that we could spread out a bit and have more room, and possibly even bring a camera bag, I try to negotiate for my groups to have just 2 people per cart, which of course gives us the ability to get better photographs, but also costs twice as much per person, although it's well worth it. The cost for the bamboo train hasn't changed in all the years I've been going, even after the recent upgrade, and so from what I can tell, it's still just $5 per person round trip, plus a tip for the driver of $1 or $2 per person is customary and a nice gesture. Now, these numbers are assuming the regular load of 4 people per Nori, so please keep that in mind and adjust your expectations and tips accordingly. Speaking of tips, one of the nice things about traveling to Cambodia, at least for US citizens, is that the economy operates on the US dollar, which is accepted just about everywhere. Cambodia has its own currency, the real, which converts to about 4,000 to $1 US. But you can go to most ATMs and choose whether to receive reals or US dollars when you get your money. Being able to pay for almost everything in dollars is pretty convenient, and I do recommend bringing lots of singles and other small denomination bills because they will always come in handy, especially when buying small items, hiring tuk-tuks, giving out tips, and more. No one ever seems to have change. Okay, back to the bamboo train. As you can imagine, this is a rather old school operation, and so to find current information, I'd suggest that you check with local tour companies and guides in the area, especially while in the town of Battambang. Even the local tuk-tuk drivers are a great source of updated information on the train's hours of operation, cost, and any other questions. So check with them because, as you know, things often change without notice. Now, the reason I recommend getting out early is so that you can stop now and then to take photos and admire life along the route and not constantly be pushed by other riders coming up behind you, at least in theory. We've seen all kinds of activities along the way, from people harvesting and working in the fields to fishermen tossing throw nets and more. There's also a bridge or two along the way where there's often room to stop and get some nice shots, so we'll try to do that as well. All right, some safety precautions are in order when doing this kind of activity. This is one that people should do at their own risk, and it's completely optional on my tours. The train can move at relatively high speeds, as much as 30 to 50 kilometers per hour, which is pretty fast considering you're on an open platform zipping along a train track with no seat belts. As I say on all my trips, safety first, photography and everything else second. Always keep yourself stable and only use two hands for photography when the train stops or slows down, because there are often bumps and irregularities in the rails, although these should have been fixed during the most recent upgrade. For a long time, the tracks were rather sketchy, but now I'm told they're in much better shape than before. Because the noris are open air with no cover at all, it goes without saying that you should probably wear a hat, sunglasses or other eye protection, and plenty of sunscreen. And I always recommend wearing good, solid shoes. As of the last time I rode it, and I don't think there's been any change in this regard, there's only one track, and the train, at least in this section, ends in a place where there are some vendors selling everything from t-shirts to coconuts. And there's an old brick kiln nearby that you can explore if it's still there. I've been riding the train since back in 2012, and every year I would see the same children selling bracelets and small souvenirs on mornings or afternoons when they weren't in school. Over the years, I befriended several of them and would often bring back pictures I'd made on previous trips and give them out as small gifts, which the kids really appreciated. Yayo and the other children I'd see each year loved to practice their English, and I would try to help them as much as possible in the short time I was there. After a bit of time exploring and refreshing with a cold drink, unfortunately, it's necessary to head back to your starting point on the same track. What problem do you suppose this might create? Of course, with only one track, people are coming towards you to start their trip just as your cart is headed the other way. Well, although this can pose a real problem, the Cambodian people are extremely clever, and so etiquette has it that the nori with the least amount of load is exited by the riders and then quickly taken apart by the drivers of each nori and set on the side of the track. Then they slide the other one by, and after, the drivers put the disassembled nori back together and each goes its separate way, at least until the next encounter. It might sound very inefficient, but believe me, it works and everyone has a good laugh each time it happens. And perhaps you'll meet some other nice travelers along the way. I've helped out at times and I can tell you, these noris are not light. The individual axles weigh around 35 kilos each, and the bamboo platform itself is probably a good 90 kilos or more, so they're not light, but the experienced drivers make it look like nothing. Because this is actually an area used by people to fish and grow rice and other products, it's also expected that if a local, often weighed down with a heavy load of his own, is waiting by the side of the track because he needs a ride, the nori will stop and take him down the way to wherever he'd like to go, at no cost, of course. Okay, so here are some quick photography tips for you. It goes without saying, but make sure you've got any necessary gear with you for the bamboo train ride, but pack light. I recommend one body and one lens. Probably a wider lens is best. Have plenty of space on your memory cards and have a backup card or two ready, always. Also, have a fully charged battery in your camera and at least one extra backup in case you run out, because you'll be shooting a lot, I'm sure. Be ready to shoot with the right settings before the nori even takes off, because it's going to be difficult to set up while it's moving. Again, safety first, everything else second. One really fun type of shot to get is where the background is blurred to show motion, but your subject or subjects are as clear as possible. I know this goes against what I said about shooting with two hands only when the nori is stopped or going very slowly. But if you turn around and very gently lean against the front bar of the nori, making sure it's solid and will hold your weight, then you should be okay. Shooting in shutter priority and using a slower shutter speed of perhaps 1/10 or 1/20 of a second and focusing and exposing on your subject should be slow enough to get you that blurry effect. Shoot a lot because you'll likely have some throwaways, but all you need is one or two good shots. Please be sure to double check that you're completely safe and that the bar in front of the nori is solid enough to hold your weight if you're going to lean on it. Otherwise, don't do this. I definitely recommend testing the bar before you even start out so that you know what you're up against, literally. After you return to base, be sure to tip your driver $1 or $2 per person, and then you're on your way. Hopefully you had the ride of a lifetime and got some really great shots to boot. Okay, at the beginning of this episode, I promised a bonus tip for sticking around, so here you have it. Wat Nom is an Angkorian temple located on the Sangke River, approximately 9 kilometers north of Battambang. It's a Hindu temple built in the 11th century and was completed in 1027 AD. Yes, you heard that right. It's close to 1,000 years old, older than the much larger and much more famous Angkor Wat near Siem Reap, which is considered to be the largest religious complex in the world by landmass. A huge white stone sitting Buddha sits outside the modern Buddhist pagoda Ek Nom. If it's open, be sure to enter the base of the Buddha to have a look inside. It's really impressive. Wat Nom is not too far and is easily accessible while on a tuk-tuk adventure, so be sure to request that your driver make a stop there. One thing I love to do on my tours is to ask my people how they're enjoying the trip. Over the years, I've gotten wonderful comments from so many of my clients, and here are just a few from the Cambodia trip I thought I'd share. Hey guys, so how did you enjoy the bamboo train?
The bamboo train was so awesome. It was right up there, one of the best train rides I've ever taken. I loved it.
We're having a great time here with Ralph's trip to Cambodia. It's a wonderful trip. Y'all should do it. It's a lot of fun.
This trip is the best.
Awesome. Fascinating.
If you have an interest in riding the bamboo train and experiencing one of the world's most underrated countries, don't forget to check out the link in the description below for my Cambodia Kingdom of Wonder tour. Question of the day: have you ever ridden the bamboo train? Have you ever been to Wat Nom? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video about what there is to see and do around Battambang, Cambodia, especially riding the bamboo train. And if you did, share it with other great travelers like you. And do let me know in the comments if you want to see more like it, and give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss an episode. Next, head on over to the continentaldrifter.co website for more interesting travel and photography tips and to get my latest download. And remember, drifters, life's too short not to travel.